Hello, everyone. My name is Michael C. Bush, and I'm the Global CEO of Great Place to Work. And thank you for joining us for another installment of Better Together. And on behalf of Great Place to Work, I'd like to thank you and wish you and your families nothing but safety and the best as we enter our holiday season. So today, we not only have one, but we have two global leaders of Cadence Design Systems. It's a great story. It's going to be great to share. Have your pencil and pad or your laptop nearby because you're going to want to take some notes so you can learn about what they've done to achieve what we call being a great place to work for all. I want to share a few housekeeping notes before we get started. We look forward to your questions, so please submit them in the questions panel. Our colleagues will field the questions and we'll do whatever we can through email to get our responses back to you. Our session today is being recorded and we will get it out to everyone in about 24 hours, which means for you right now. And joining me today, first, we're going to have Tina Jones. Tina is the Senior Vice President of Global Human Resources at Cadence since 2007. During her tenure as the HR lead at Cadence, the company has significantly transformed its culture. The result, remarkable business performance and consistent recognition on a variety of our best workplaces lists, both in the US and regionally across Asia, Europe, and the Americas. This year, Tina has led the company's global COVID-19 task force to ensure that employee safety, wellness, and perspective remain front and center during these unprecedented times. It is this people-first approach that we believe in and the company's one-team culture that has enabled Cadence to maintain trust with its employees and even excel during these uncertain times. Joining Tina today is Neil Zaman. Neil serves as Chief Revenue Officer and has been Senior Vice President of Worldwide Field Operations since 2015. As the Chief Revenue Officer, Neil is responsible for sales, services, field engineering, and customer support teams that manage customer relationships around the world, driving customer success via the Cadence Intelligent System Design Strategy. Neil has overseen Cadence and watched it achieve 10 straight years of increasing revenue and a steadily growing stock price. He's the perfect person for us to have on our panel today. He has been a firm believer that you can't execute on strategy without the right culture. He is the executive sponsor for the Women of WFO program, and he's going to tell you more about that later. With 8,700 employees across 20 countries, Cadence is a $30 billion high-tech company that provides software, hardware, and IP to support electronics companies in a wide variety of markets, including hyperscale computing, 5G communications, automotive, aerospace, industrial, and health. So I'd like to call it your favorite company's favorite company. And a few of our metrics to share. In 2020, Cadence was ranked number 18 on our world's best workplaces list. About 10,000 companies we survey every year. Cadence was number 18 in the world. Number 28 on our People Companies That Care list in 2020. So not only are they getting it right in terms of business, in terms of the financials, but also in terms of the work they do in the community, which is what the People list is about. They are number 28. And number 82 on our Fortune 100 Best Companies to Work For in 2020. So Tina and Neil, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate it.
And happy to have you with us today. So Neil, I'm going to start with you. I just babbled some things about Cadence Design Systems and what the business is, but if you could bring those words to life to let people know what you do with your partners and with your customers to have a magnificent impact on the world.
Thanks for the question, Michael. You know, I prepared for this question purely walking into a party. I used to get this all the time. What does Cadence really do? So, you know, instead of giving a complicated answer, my answer used to be, look, I used to point out devices inside the house in their hand, whether it's a phone, a router, or any television or something like that. I would say, look, if there is an integrated circuit, or there's a motherboard, or any other kind of device like that, you would need Cadence's computational software to produce that result. If you want to emulate it, you have our hardware systems. If you want IP blocks to go in, we produce and we give you IP blocks. So in respect to whether you have a chip, a board, or a system, any device that you're creating, you need the Cadence software.
Okay, so it's actually probably pretty hard for us to do what we're doing right now without Cadence.
I would say it'd be impossible.
All right, all right. Well, that tells us a lot about the impact. So thank you for that, Neil. And Tina, so as you think about 8,700 employees, located all around the world, far corners of the world, doing business, which is challenging, especially as you're working in many different countries and working in a field of technology, the rapid change and the rapid pace of doing that work. And then suddenly, to make things more difficult, something begins to happen in January and February of 2019, of 2020, that we don't really understand. So if you can take us back to that moment and what it was like for you and the executive team to start to think through and respond to this thing that became known as COVID-19.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for having us. And I just want to thank Great Place to Work. You've been a fabulous partner to Cadence for many years, and especially this year when we've needed your survey tools to really hear back from all of our employees globally. And I just also wanted to commend you personally. Your leadership at Great Place to Work has really transformed the organization, and all you're doing with respect to social justice and diversity and inclusion are really just a role model for us who are trying to do the best we can and lead, particularly in these challenging times. But I think at Cadence, because we're so global, we have about 1,000 employees in China. So frankly, the China team was very immersed in this issue early on, and we kind of learned from them. And so it wasn't sort of the shock that some companies that didn't have as much of a China presence may have experienced more in March. The thing in China is that the Chinese government really dictated what all employers should do. So all we did was comply with regulations. Outside of China, it's really been incumbent on employers to decide what is right and to make a lot of judgment calls. Yes, there's some guidance from the CDC and local governments, but there are a lot of judgment calls to be made. And so I think, there's always a question, will we really put people first when it comes down to it? Will one team really be our North Star? And, I believe that is the position we've taken consistently. So it's been heartening for me as the HR person to say that we actually, walked the talk when it counted. I think you asked about employees' physical health, is that right? Yeah, I mean, I think, as Neil knows, I think we sat around the table in February and I said something really dumb like, this seems kind of complicated. I think we might need a task force on this. And then I got the joy of taking that on. I don't think in my 17 years at the company, I've seen an issue that has required so much cross-functional collaboration. This required IT to be on their game as we transitioned the majority of our employees to working from home, facilities, HR, legal has been phenomenal, and then business leaders. Without business leaders staying connected to employees, we would be lost. So, it really has required a cross-functional effort. But when it has come time to decide, do we care more about productivity or even business results, or are we going to be conservative and protect employees' health? We have gone conservative and protected employees' health. So outside of Asia, for us, the vast majority of employees are working from home, and we're lucky that we can still operate largely and do business that way. And we have a very small number of people who need to be on site and who are coming in and who are brave, and we're taking all the precautionary measures we can to keep them safe.
Okay. And Tina, one of the things we were talking about this, a little before we got started today, is that for all of our people, regardless of who you are and what you do, if you are both continuing to go out into the world to do work, it's very stressful. And for our people who are now working from their bedroom, or their basement, or their garage, this new way of being has been very stressful. And then yet the finish line keeps moving. if you will. So what kinds of things have you explored? What kinds of things are you thinking about in terms of doing what you can for your people in terms of their mental health, question one, and then secondly, financial health, question two. And Tina, I'd like to hear your response. Neil, if you have anything to add, you can as well.
Absolutely.
Great, yeah. The mental health component's becoming a big worry, frankly, as this is definitely a marathon and not a sprint. And we've had to grapple with a lot of employees who want to come back in the office for mental health reasons. And we're sort of making judgment calls on that pressure point versus the possible risk of employee exposure being on site. So it's still a hot topic for us, frankly, and for most companies. But on the positive side, for SHR types, it has been a great time to experiment and pilot. And, you know, we have online yoga classes, meditation. Employees have the Headspace app. We use Sanvello. We have backup child care and elder care through Bright Horizons. You know, not every benefit we offer is available in every place around the world, but we're really trying to build a virtual community. We've given employees extra holidays, and we want, you know, we're sort of forcing 3-day weekends, and we really think this blending of home and work is super challenging for some people, especially ones with young children and homeschooling and you know, our employees in India who may be, you know, in a very tight workspace and home space. So it's an issue. We haven't totally solved it, but we are trying to keep wellness front and center of our communications and our benefit and sort of perk offerings. But you asked about financial wellness. I mean, everyone's worried, right? People are worried about job security for sure. We have done our best to maintain jobs at Cadence. It's, you know, absolutely a top priority for us. And so, you know, when things first happened and we were sort of late Q1, early Q2, we had to make a judgment call on whether we would have our normal salary adjustment cycle. And we postponed it for a quarter and said, we have got to see how this may impact our business and our customers' business longer term. And so we sort of rounded the corner. We felt comfortable. We had a salary adjustment cycle. We then made up for that quarter that we had missed with a special bonus. We've given $1,250 to all employees to sort of set up a home office or, you know, do something that's good for them with a lot of flexibility on how they've used that money. And we've been blessed. We've had a strong year. Thanks a lot due to Neil and his team. We've had a strong year. So we were able to pay a very, very healthy first half bonus. So, you know, I'm feeling good about how we've been able to treat employees from a financial perspective.
Okay. Neil, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
You know, it's very tough to go after Tina. First of all, she covered
I
all
agree.
different
I can see that. Yeah, she just casually just gave people the notepads and pencils were moving just now. I mean, she just gave she's like, well, we don't know what we're doing and we're trying to figure it out, but here's what we did. Bang, 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 bang. You know,
I would just tell you that she's been a wonderful partner to work with throughout this whole thing. Like she mentioned, we had a CV leadership team, which she basically ran basically half of our EMT sitting twice a week to make sure that we're handling all these different issues. She covered, of course, the mental and the physical element. What I can tell you is that I don't believe you can solve a crisis in a crisis if you don't have the right culture. And I'll go back to the cultural element again. You know, if you don't have an employee first element, you just cannot come up with it in the crisis. So I think part of the culture was that one team, how people came together, how people, you know, had these beer outings virtually. That's, if your culture isn't of one team, you can't really say that in the crisis, hey, everybody get together and have virtual beers if that's never been done before. So the team has always done that, right? Either virtually or getting together, whether it's our European team or the North America or the Asia Pacific Japan team. These teams have always come together. Now, let me give you a little bit of a customer perspective. I've talked to hundreds of customers, and what was shocking for me was, I mean, I had a lot of people complain to me about, in the past, like, oh, this is not working out, you could do this better, whatever. This time around, I was shocked to see that people were not only amenable, they were telling us that we were doing a wonderful job on all aspects of support. We had done a great job in the company, upgrading our infrastructure and making sure that we were able to handle the work offline, right? So we were able to do that. The investments that we made in global customer support within my organization several years ago paid dividends as the support element went up by almost 60–70%. We were able to handle that. So again, I go back to the point that, as Tina made, whatever you do and whatever we did, it was part of our culture. It was basically an accentuation or basically an improvement or a tweak. That's what I would like to add.
Yeah. Just listening to the list of great things, and I know you could go on in terms of the things that you've done for your people, but listening to the flow of it, as Tina, as you described it, which is, hey, we don't know what's going on, and we have this thing called salary adjustments. What should we do? And so really putting your people first is not doing that so you can preserve jobs. I mean, it's like, look, it's like that's putting people first. It's like, look, we're going to stall this so we can keep everybody here. And then you move forward. And yes, you have a financial picture that you can afford to take care of people because they're worried about their financial health. And so you do that. Because if you just use the spreadsheet, you don't do that. You don't do that. You're like, hey, it's still going to be uncertain in 2021. We're freezing salaries. We're not doing bonuses. If you're not thinking about, well, our people are worried about their financial health, you don't, look, we've got to do something here. And we feel like we can come together and we have the kind of culture that can do that. So this is where putting your people first, leaving the Excel spreadsheet is an example of being a great place to work for all. And Neil, as you said, and the survey data is showing this around the world, great companies got even greater in 2020. Companies that were having trouble, the opposite occurred. You have an online beer meeting and there'd be one person there looking at themselves sipping a beer. Nobody else was there, or some people without their video on. These are the kinds of things. Big difference. The gap has gotten wider in terms of performance, in terms of high trust businesses and those that aren't.
But it's like you've said, I mean, it's your true colors show in a crisis, and they just do. Right. And I think we've been pretty blessed that, all the work we did foundationally on our culture and on our business model and our long-term business strategy has really pulled through for us so far. The other thing when you were talking is it comes down so much to the managers. And, yes, we've invested in some additional training of managers so that they know how to talk to employees about not just the product roadmap, but how to be empathetic and compassionate and to ask some personal questions in an appropriate way, to check on mental health. There's been a lot of responsibility falling on managers, and that's the first trust point. And they are so key to communicating and being in touch with their people. I just want to thank them so much because they've really pulled through.
And I agree with that. I would just add that there's an element that people look for in a crisis, and that is sincerity and intent. And again, you cannot get that if you have not put that as your first priority. So I think what Tina's also talking about is, again, you cannot just train managers in the middle of a pandemic of how to behave and how to be empathetic. I think this comes over years and years of either training and hiring and retaining the top managers who understand how to behave and how to be sincerely empathetic in these kinds of situations. That's training, that's long-term commitment, in my opinion.
And your data supports that this is something that you do remarkably well. The role of the as we all know, if you want to grab a group of people and say this is the pivotal group, it's mid-level managers. That is the group, and you can, I was talking about the CEO yesterday who described it as an hourglass and said you've got all the weight of senior executives on the top, and then it comes into the middle. That's where the mid-level managers are, and all the weight is on top of them, and then you flip that upside down, and it's all their people and the weight that's on top of them that then has to get translated to the top. They're right at that pinch point. And as you know, the companies are not great without them. This is the vital group. But because of growth, as you're performing the way that you're performing, you have a lot of people who are new in that role. So you don't just all of a sudden put them in that role and they're great at it. You have to have, the data shows you have a good way of selecting them, a good way of onboarding them, and a good way of training them, and making sure they understand the Cadence values as being a part of the way they work. And
Yeah,
go ahead, Tina.
I just think you touched on one of the, I think, toughest things. We've hired, probably 1,500 people this year. I just feel so bad for people coming into a new company virtually. Kudos to managers and leaders who are having enough faith in their ability to hire people they've never met in person. But I mean, that is a tough, that is a tough place to be, to integrate and build those networks and understand the nuance of how a company works. So yes, of course, all of us are trying to improve our onboarding and doing everything virtually and training. But I just really commend those new employees who are making all this effort to try to understand the culture, to fit in, to build a network. That can't be easy.
Yeah,
I would add, Tina, one more thing, which is, again, it goes back to the culture. As the managers keep talking about the fact that Cadence has not laid off people, they have not furloughed people, they take care of the cafeteria people and things like that. That again goes back to the culture, and they feel not like coming in and be the first ones out. So they become part of that, even though it's learning process is difficult, building the relationships is difficult. But when you come in and people say, no, you'll be fine, Cadence knows how to take care of its people, that helps. I've known many people that have gone into new companies where the culture is not like that. People are on the edge, sitting on the outside saying, are we, last in, first out?
Yeah. So, we've got the complexity that we've been describing, what we've been living through based on COVID-19, based on stock market recession, V-shaped, U-shaped, W-shaped, who knows what, all these things going on. And then if things couldn't get hard enough, we had George Floyd's murder, and which shook everyone around the world. It wasn't just a U.S. issue. It happened and has, like in no other time in my life, pushed some issues to the surface. That people are deciding that it's now time to move forward, at varying rates. But everybody, it was like a wake-up call, an unfortunate one, but it did happen. So, Neil, I think just starting with you, if you could describe, your experience and then the response, the kinds of things that the executive team began to do to make sure that they were, again, taking care of their people who were living through this tough situation that became even tougher.
Well, as you said, it was absolutely a wake-up call, a very tragic event and multitude of events. I can tell you that it was a solemn moment, and right up the bat, Lip-Bu sent an email, not only internally, but also at LinkedIn, talking about the tragedy and the fact that we care about diversity, inclusion, social justice. That was shared, I guess, outside and internally, and that was internalized by our executive management team, and we followed up with our own communication. And I can tell you, and Tina can get into the detail, but again, I go back to the point that, yes, there are companies that whether they had an epiphany or they had a woke moment, but I think we've been talking about diversity and inclusion for a very long time. For us, and Tina will get into some of the details, but for us, it was more about let's accelerate. this is a moment where we accelerate, where we do things a little bit more efficient, a little bit more better. And what are the other areas that we can do to further proliferate this?
Okay. And Tina, can you share some of the details, some of the things you've done around inclusion groups, allyship, and so on, the acceleration, if you will, that Neil's describing?
Yeah, well, our focus, if I'm really honest, even though I'm sure we make a great place to work, we want to tell you about all the great things we do, but our true focus, Michael, was on gender diversity for the last, 4 or 5 years. And we felt that was a crisis in our industry and sort of an inexcusable place for our industry to be. And we've made it a top priority to improve the gender diversity at Cadence globally. And that's from hiring out of university through, managerial and leadership position hiring, promotion, gender pay equity, all of that. And so we really wanted to do that right. Now, I'm not saying we're at the victory stage, but we wanted to focus and get results. This was a wake-up call, at least for me. It was a wake-up call for us that we have to broaden that and increase the perspective we're using to really make a difference at Cadence. And we've got a long ways to go. The industry is not especially diverse, and we really want to lead on this and not just follow. So we have transformed, our university programs and where we're going for talent. We are going to be doing some, very aggressive things on trying to change our numbers and bring in more perspectives that we don't currently have enough of. We have created some great employee resource groups who have come together, and I think the key on that is we're just going to empower them to really lead on this, to bring ideas and for us to invest in them, and really we want their perspective and not us just top down to decide what should be done. So hearing from them has been very insightful for me. And we've got some great leaders at the company, I think, who are really going to help us make a difference here.
Okay.
And Michael, let me just add a little bit to that. As an example on the gender front, I'd worked on this initiative along with Tina and others, which was in my organization, it's the women of WFO per se. And whether it was identifying the high potential leaders, looking at mentoring them, putting career ladders in place, pay equity, as Tina talked about, and actually pulling them out and sending them to mini MBA classes, Grace Hopper, and other investments that we made. We have a long way to go. We've made some positive movement, but as Tina pointed out, like if you take a look at the engineering universities and where we used to hire from, it was difficult to get the right candidates. But now we're expanding, we're broadening, and we're looking at how we can bring in a lot more people from different and diverse backgrounds and different gender. I think those are the things that we're up to. Again, as Tina pointed out, it's not something that we're done. We have a lot more to go, but this is a desire that we've had for several years, and I think this is only us accelerating.
Okay, and you also have the because you've leaned in and made progress in terms of gender. The organization has some confidence that when you lean in, the difference comes, and you don't back off, you don't stop, you keep pushing. So this is what enables acceleration. Yes. That you've got some performance, you've got a roadmap, and you can lean in. And while people will be, for many people, it can't happen soon enough. But the acceleration is something that can yield results because of what you've been able to do in terms of gender.
And Michael, the difference of having, I'm speaking to all those HR people out there, the difference of having a business leader, like Neil, just say, this is my top 3 priority. I'm making this happen. I'm investing my precious, dollars in my organization to it, and holding their leaders accountable. That was the game changer. HR can fight the good fight, and we can bring the ideas and facilitate and make things happen. But having leaders truly believe and make the steps that Neil's done with respect to his organization, that's what changed the entire game for us.
Tina, you just delivered the soundbite. The key piece of information, I believe, for our audience that they want to hear and they're going to want to transmit, which is that Chief People Officer, Chief Human Resource Officer is critical, as Neil tipped his hat to you earlier in creating a great place to work for all. But to achieve true equality and fairness, it doesn't happen without business leaders, and the way that you just highlighted Neil in being that type of a leader. And so, Neil, I'd ask you, number one, to respond to that, and also as the Chief Revenue Officer, okay, you're kind of the hardest person in most companies to get to really be people first. When did this make sense to you? And what advice do you have for other business leaders who are maybe on the precipice trying to decide if they're taking a risk if they lean into the people first arena?
Well, I think from the very beginning, Cadence as a company, for the last 10 years, I give a lot of credit to LeBou, talking about, one team, and I care about employees, I care about delighting the customers and things like that. So that's been in our blood for the last 10 years. And as Tina pointed out, I don't think you can, business leaders, without the support of HR, I don't look at HR as a resource. I look at HR as a partner, as a collaborator. How do we work together and how do we make things happen? It isn't like I just did this on my own. It's Tina also telling me, Neil, we need to go do this. And I'm like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Let's work together on it. We do town halls together. We have another town hall coming up with women leaders. So I think it's it's not one person. I think it's a little bit of culture. It's an epiphany, a sincere epiphany, and then working very closely with Tina has been a joy. There's no doubt in that. I'm beating the drum again and again, but I think you have to be sincere. And from my perspective, the job of a leader, people ask, what is that job? And to me, it is the leader's job is to produce other leaders. And if you do that, then it's a scalable system and it'll go down and you're a company that's going to have longevity. If you are only worried about yourself or a specific tactic to satisfy a board or your own objective, it's not going to work. So I go back to the fact, build it into your culture. Make sure the leaders are producing other leaders that are sincere about their employees, and then you will have longevity and improvement.
Okay, all right. And how do you feel about Cadence's financial performance in 2020? Not looking forward, just looking backwards. Are you feeling pretty good?
As CRO, I've always stated, I'm more like a fruit fly. I wake up in the morning and I'm dead at night. So I never talk about the past, but I can tell you it's been a very good year. I think we're a company that people have looked at as recession proof as you can make it, based on the fact that our technology is pervasive, our technology is critical to some of the best companies in the world. So we feel pretty good. And again, it's not about just one person. It's the team of the people that have produced differentiating technology. It's the people who have marketed it. It's the people who have supported it. And then finally, having the right strategy and the customer relationship to deliver those kinds of results in specifically a pandemic.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty proud of all of Cadence efforts in this space.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of companies who are mission critical, recession proof that found out they weren't recession proof. So they don't have the culture part, which is the thing that, kind of inoculates you. So Tina, looking forward into 2021, where, we know we've got an economy, that we'll see what happens, stimulus, probably. Vaccine, yes, which is making all of us feel good. It's not a miracle cure, but at least we have some optimism, on that front. And yet you've got people who have been carrying a lot of stress and pressure, for a long time, and they have to continue. So as you think about 2021, as the Chief Human Resource Officer, what's on your mind looking into 2021? And what do you feel like you're going to need to do even better in 2021?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think we're all trying to predict when will things be maybe more normal again. And it seems that consensus is around mid-year. We're hopeful. But, the interesting part is that this pandemic, while obviously terrible in so many ways, has also surfaced some amazing things. I mean, HR has been saying for a long time, people can work effectively from home. No, really, we can trust them. They're not just going to be, sitting on the beach drinking Mai Tais. And so, suddenly this happened, and we proved that our employees are resilient and productive and committed, even though they're working from home. So that frees up a whole lot of things. That frees up possibly where you can recruit people from. Maybe office space should be recalibrated. Maybe we don't need to be in the office every single day to be productive. So we have formed a team of leaders to, we've surveyed leaders, we've heard back from them and how they're feeling about their teams. And then, we have a group that's looking at the future of work. And, what could this be like for 3 to 5 years? Next year will probably be another rather strange year, maybe a hybrid year. But what do employees, how are they going to thrive? Do they want to be in the office 3 days a week? And are they okay with having collaboration space and they don't need to have their assigned seat? And can we invest in some office space that's really appealing and draws people in and makes it worth being in the office? And while allowing a lot more flexibility for where people do their work. So it has, for us, we were a little old school on our thinking on this front. So it really blew the doors open for us on how open we are to saying, we'll look at the whole spectrum of choices, and we really want to hear from our people what's important to them, and how do they want to work in the future, and of course what's prudent financially and all of that. So we're doing some really interesting work now that we never would have been done in this way without the pandemic. So I'm excited about that piece.
Okay. And Neil, same for you. As you look forward into 2021, what specific challenge? What's the top 3 things on your mind when you wake up at 3 a.m.? Kind of worried looking into 2021, and also what kinds of things do you feel like you'll need to do? The people of Cadence will need to do to do even better in 2021.
I think one, I feel pretty confident about our strategy. I feel comfortable about our position with our customers. So I feel pretty good about those pieces. I am concerned about the employee health and how people are struggling to this crisis. You also have to look at the ecosystem, right? Of all the people, whether the people in the restaurant industry, the cruise industry, the airline industry, the ecosystem is hurt. So that concerns me. And of course, as you see, some of these things could cause demand to go down. But we feel comfortable that next year, as there are more therapeutics available, more vaccines available, and with the right business models and the right economic climate, we should be okay.
Okay. So Neil, are you? I know as a person, you wouldn't be in your role if you weren't an optimistic person. But if you could share with the audience why you're optimistic about 2021.
I'm a cautiously optimistic person. So I'll put it that way first. And again, I go back to the fundamentals. It always takes me back to, do you trust the company that you're with? Do you trust your management and your leadership team? Once you do that, you have to look at it from the perspective that, do we have a long-term strategy in place? And these dips come and go, but you're prepared for most of these dips, as we proven ourselves that we were prepared as much as possible for this pandemic. So that's the reason why I'm comfortable. I think we'll have to make tweaks, but I think our strategy is working. I think our employees are resilient. and I feel our customers are being delighted in this pandemic. So I feel pretty comfortable, pretty good,
Okay.
cautiously optimistic.
All right, I like it. I like it. And Tina, how about you? Your level of optimism for 2021?
And what he said. And huge kudos to people on the management team and other leaders who have really invested in the long-term strategy and vision, which is paying off. We also did a lot to rebuild our credibility with our shareholders and with our customers by under-promising and over-delivering consistently. So, we feel good about that. I guess for me, what makes me optimistic is I feel like the resilience, the agility, the one team spirit of the Cadence employees has just come through. This has been a truly global issue. It's affected all of our teams all over the world, and we have come together and risen to the occasion. So the fact that this has been proven in 2020, I think, makes me very confident that we will do well next year.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Tina and Neil, and for sharing so much with our audience. Congratulations on what you and your team and your people. I mean, you're just like other great leaders that we know, which is always talking about your people and what your people are doing, and all deflecting any glow that comes on either of you as leaders, which is what Great Place to Work for all leaders do. That's kind of the trait that for all leaders have. And thank you for displaying that today. Congratulations, and we wish you more success looking into 2021 and for many, many more years to come. And for our audience today, thank you for joining us today. And we will be getting out any follow-up information shortly. And if you'd like to know more about our topics or a Great Place to Work or any follow-up on this session, you can send us an email at michael_bush@greatplacetowork.com. And please mark in your calendar to join us for our next December CEO conversation, where we'll be joined with the digital health startup CEO that has been reimagining healthcare for women and families. And that family's name is Maven. So please sign up, go to greatplacetowork.com for the Maven conversation and future sessions, and obviously how we take care of women, families, and all those who participate and are in the definition of family. We do much better in our effort to create a great place to work for all. So thank you for joining us. We are better together, and we send our best to you and your families, your employees, and the communities that you live in. Great Place to Work, we're all about doing things that are better for business, better for people, and better for the world. Thank you.